Over the weekend, Chase Rice held a concert in Tennessee, and now he's feeling the backlash. Brushy Mountain Group put on the show at the Brushy Mountain State Penitentiary for about 4,000 attendees, though they claim it was more like 1,000. Rice posted a video which showed a packed crowd and none wearing protective gear, simply writing, "We back." Numerous people inside and outside the industry have called him out and even put his booking agency on notice. Yesterday, Rice responded in a video by not offering an apology, but instead saying, "I understand there's a lot of varying opinions, a lot of different opinions on COVID-19, how it works with live music crowds." He added, "My biggest thing, y'all, you guys are everything to me, so your safety is a huge, huge priority." He also added, "People, please go by the rules, please go by the laws on this Friday's show coming up and those moving forward so we can get to regular shows enough." Sam, someone had to take the plunge and host a concert. What are your thoughts on this?
Too soon. It's just too soon. I mean, like it's one thing to say that somebody needed to take the plunge and host a concert, but that I wasn't expecting that to happen for months. I guess the drive-in concerts are one thing, and apparently that's what is up next for Chase Rice, uh, is a drive-in concert. But again, talking about going by the laws and the rules, well, I mean, like you look at all the places where the laws and the rules are being relaxed, and it doesn't make it better. So I think this is an instance of action speaking louder than words, and generally kind of giving into the economic pressures, which I understand, but I find it to be really disrespectful to the tour folks behind the scenes who are canceling work, not taking work, refusing to participate because of the safety, because of their families, because of the people around them. And then this happens, and it just kind of puts everybody at risk and makes things worse, makes the concert business on hiatus even longer.
Well, there was the quote that was like Brian May, the vice president of the Brushy Mountain Group. He was saying that, quote, "All local requirements were abided by for the recent concert and numerous precautions were taken." Uh, you know, these kind of things are like, it's like, oh, well, we followed what the law said. And it's like, there's the other circumstance of saying, are people going to behave properly? And that's what, Brian May also said, but then Chase doubled down and saying, it's like, please follow the law. So you're asking people that obviously aren't, you're setting it up so that they can obviously do whatever they want, and you hide under the fact of saying, well, we did what the guidelines recommended.
Right. Well, and there's always the matter of enforcement too. So you can spend all you want on top of the soapbox crowing about the law, as hollow as the law might or might not be, but if you don't opt to enforce it actively, nobody's going to take it as seriously. It's like jaywalking in New York. It's against the law, sure, but
Mhm.
so what?
Yeah, I mean, he said that we couldn't. It was tough for us to enforce. Well, if it's tough for you to enforce, then you shouldn't be putting it on in the first place.
Well, I agree, and I think that obviously leaves a huge gap. And there's a lot of artists who are looking at this and saying, like, we're foregoing a bunch of money, we're foregoing the opportunity to tour, we're foregoing venues that are taking risks, and we're not putting ourselves at risk, but we're also taking the risk financially. And so it's unfair to kind of, it's not a picket line, it's not a union issue, but it sort of feels like breaking a picket line a little bit, and it's disrespectful to everybody else who's taken the financial hit by not doing the same thing.
Right. And he's going to continue going on tour and the drive-ins, and this kind of brings on a different, it's opening up the Pandora's box in that sense of years ago when streaming services were saying, it's like, well, if you really, or people were saying like, oh, if you really want to make money, you don't rely on the streaming services, you go on tour, you use the streaming services for exposure, and then you go on tour. Well, obviously right now there's no touring, and the only revenue, any significant revenue, is from streaming. And now we're truly seeing how little that you can make a living off of streaming for the majority of the artists. So if we can't tour, what do we have? Streaming. And I know offline you mentioned that about streaming the need to move to a user-centric payment model. What exactly do you mean by that?
So it basically comes down to a dollar in, dollar out kind of question, right? So if I buy a record, uh, my money is spent on that record. The money I spent on that record turns into a royalty for the artist of that record. Whereas on streaming, that's not the case because you're paying a single usage fee, a subscription fee for the entire, Library of Alexandria of music, if you will. Um, it's it's tough, I guess, in the initial concept to determine how to allocate the money that is accrued by the platform as a whole. But we have so much rich data and so much deep intel about the listening behaviors of particular users, as evidenced by Spotify Wrapped at the end of every year and other kind of sort of campaigns that they've done to promote the platform. It doesn't make sense to me why we can't allocate specific users' play activity and the revenue associated with that play activity to the music being consumed. And so, what the user centric model basically outlines is if I spend, say, $10 a month and Spotify keeps $3. It's less than that, but we'll, for the sake of their published numbers, we'll say it's their 30%. So there's $7 on the table for the rights owners. And if I only ever listen to your music, you get all of the money that I paid into the system because you took all of the activity that I put into the system as well. The existing paradigm is I put in my $7 into the pool for rights owners, and it's then aggregated and then divided by the number of streams. So if you only get my 100 streams in a given month, and that's all of my activity and it's all of your activity, the money that I spent actually goes to everybody and then divided by your 100 streams instead of your 100 streams being worth my $7. So it the sort of analysis and theory that has gone into calculating what the impact of this would be basically suggests that it would super boost independent music on the platform because the fans around independent music tend to be dedicated and fervent around that style of music. But the consumption about pop music at the top 40 level is so broad in terms of its consumption that it wouldn't actually suffer that much of a difference. It might have a little bit of a dip because it's not, it's not benefiting from royalties that don't belong to them. But we're also talking about music that exists in the million plus streams per day range. It's clearly not going to suffer under this model. It's just going to kind of reorganize things in a bit of a more equitable way.
Yeah, and there's two things on that. Is one, I have my 10 fans. I'm a fan of super fan for 10 artists. And years ago, you'd go buy their albums, and it goes right to the, well, not right to them, but it gets more direct
Or if you're
to
talking about
the
Bandcamp or
artist.
something like,
And then,
a
mhm,
merch table, like a Bandcamp or a merch table situation, the money does go directly to the artist, and that's a really
yep.
powerful driver of support.
Hmm. And then the thing is, I want that kind of money to go to them. So in the model right now, it doesn't exist, and it's kind of that old radio model before they could get that data. Where it's like, looking at playlists, and the DJs writing in. It's like, oh, I played Madonna's "Like a Prayer" 20 times today, and I played X person this many times, and I played this song, and then they compile, and the PROs would say, "Oh, well, we estimate based on this segment that this is what we are going to pay out to the artist." But you hit the nail on the head, where it's, we have so much data that we can identify, so, like, crazy details, and why shouldn't it be that way? And one thing is, well, the labels have own stake in the streaming companies, so they're going to want to see that profit continue. And there's that one issue, that are they going to bite the hand that feeds yet again?
And I think, it's certainly it's a matter of um, political power. I think it's less and less a matter, especially with the sway of the public market, less and less a matter of the labels having equity, though that is a piece of the pie, piece of the puzzle here. But I'd like to see some kind of real uh, enforcement or power at play to make things more equitable. One thing that I noticed that I heard recently was a statement from, I believe it's the Shadow Secretary for Culture and Arts and Digital Culture and Arts in the UK, was on the BBC talking about her support. Joe Stevens, the Labour MP from Wales, one of them, I guess. I'm not as well versed in UK politics as US politics, and that's quite enough of a story for most of us, I think. But the support is there. At least it's starting to be there. And I think when you're talking about a premium market like the UK, one of the top 5 music markets in the world, and certainly one of the most valuable currencies in the world, especially with regard to streaming, um, British streams are quite valuable, especially at the premium level. That has real implications and real sort of driving power. And I hope that starts to trickle out, because it could mean a much fairer music economy for everyone, especially as we kind of elongate this pattern of not being able to play shows and festivals.